Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel where we bring the most iconic action stories to life. Today we are diving into a true movie story. Agila, translate Eagle, is a 1980 Philippine period drama film written, produced, and directed by Eddie Romero, touted as the biggest event in local movie history and the biggest Filipino film ever made. It features an ensemble cast top-billed by Fernando Poe Jr. Flashbacks encompass the history of the Philippines as well as the life story of the elderly Daniel Aguila. The Aguila family gathers to celebrate Daniel's 88th birthday, but the old man is nowhere to be seen. He has been missing for a decade. Suspecting that his father is in Mindanao, one of his sons takes off for that region in a determined search. Along the way, his memories of the nation and his father's life tell the story of 80 tumultuous years of personal and historical development. 3. In 1980, the influential and affluent Aguila family celebrate the 88th birthday of their missing and long-presumed dead patriarch, Daniel Aguila. His son, Mari, receives news that Daniel is alive in the provinces. Mari, a business tycoon and former senator, combs the countryside in search of his father. In the course of his search, the Aguila family history is unraveled. It all begins when Daniel's father, Adamio, an officer in the Revolutionary Army, dies by treachery. His mother, Isabel Teodoro, is raped by that same traitor, Simeon Garrido, and later marries him for convenience. As a young soldier accompanying Simeon to Mindanao, Daniel again becomes witness to injustice. Simeon and some Americans ruthlessly take away Muslim tribal lands. Daniel's life is one of complexity, of human emotions and relationships. His affair with a Muslim woman, Farida, results in a love child, Osman. He marries a lawyer named Sally, Mari's mother, who later falls ill and dies. He also discovers the incestuous liaison between Simeon and Lillian, who in turn unsuccessfully attempts to seduce him. Daniel's experiences during World War II and with the American-controlled post-war government only increase his mounting disenchantment with life and society. Mari's immoral political ambitions and his grandson Raul's activist stance drives him further into disillusionment. Finally, Daniel heeds his longing for peace and leaves. Mari's journey ends when he finds Daniel in an Ida village in Bohol, where Daniel has found serenity, far from the maddening machinations and injustices committed by a civilized society. 4. Cast of characters. Fernando Poe Jr. as General Daniel T. Aguila. Ricky Rivero as young Daniel Aguila. Amalia Fuentes as Isabel Teodoro. Christopher de Leon as Senator Mariel Aguila. Elizabeth Oropeza as Lillian T. Garrido. Jay Ilagan as Osman Aguila. Charo Santos as Attorney Monica Salvation, Sally Lamas de Aguila. Chanda Romero as Dewata. Daria Ramirez as Elvira. Eddie Garcia as Don Simeon Garrido. Celia Rodriguez as Margot Cepeda. Orestes Ojeda as Victor, Vic del Aguila. Susan Valdez as Bessie Aguila. Johnny Delgado as Ibrahim. Kendria Andalon as Farida. Conrad Poe as Karim Aguila. Yvette Christine as Luciel Aguila Noriega. Dave Burdett as Captain Artemio Aguila. Ruben Ruscha as General Karam. Lito Anzurez as Daja Khalid. Ricky Sandico as Raul Aguila. June Gamboa as Arcadio Cuevas. Roderick Paulette as Quinton. Ben Cervantes as Basilio. Odette Khan as Binet. Ariel Mulak as Danielito Aguila. Rolando Tinio. R. V. Romero. Henry Salcedo. Tom Madden. Richard Lawrence. Annie Farah. George Weber, Maria Luisa Gabaldon, P. V. Gabaldon, George Albert Romero, Demi Cardenas, Serafin Payawal, Archie Laxon, Grace Poe, Meloda Guzman. The Penthouse 7 Dancers. Production. The film had a budget of 5 million Cuban pesos and boasted 12 stars, 60 production staff and crewmen and 7,000 extras. 5. The film was shot in 120 different locations. 5. The film's art director, Mal Cayanglo, built a Magdalene camp in an Alondid village on the hills of Tane and an Ida village in Los Baños. Cayanglo had 3 assistants, 2 set men and 10 carpenters to help in this work. Cayanglo also designed sets for an 1897 evening in Binondo, a Muslim waterfront in 1918, the Subbo, Batangas, a courthouse in 1924, Magdalena, Laguna, a roaring 20s cabaret in Makati, a Japanese garrison in Lumban, Laguna, and other settings. 5. The film took 100 days to shoot the 204 pages of script written for it, the latter having been written over a 2-year period. 5. Actress Riel Locsin was originally cast to play Hook Commander Dewada but was replaced by Chanda Romero, director Eddie Romero's niece. 6. When she failed to show up on her first shooting day. 5. The production was infamously marred by tensions between the crew. Among the reported incidents of tensions flaring up involved Eddie Romero's frequent butting of heads with Mel Cayanglo. 7. Romero likewise clashed with set decorator, and now screenwriter, Raquel Villavicencio over unreasonable production demands. 7. Eventually, the differences among the crew members got so unbearable for the film's cinematographer, Mike de Leon, that he walked out on the project altogether. 5. However, while tensions were building between members of the crew, no such tensions were reported among the actors and Romero himself. Romero was described as being a cool director, not having been angered by the actors on the set. 7. The lone exception of Romero being angered by an actor on the set is when he threatened to renounce his niece, Chanda, if she could not do her kissing scene with Christopher de Leon right. 6. Romero was notoriously late on the set, but the actors would arrive even later than Romero himself. 5. Despite this, however, Romero tolerated the different personalities between the actors and allowed them to bond, usually over meals in between shoots. 7. Upon the release of the film, a minor criticism launched at it was that the actors who are supposed to age do not look like they aged a day. 5. Most notably, Amalia Fuentes refused to show age in the film despite portraying the mother of FPJ's character, Daniel. 7. 8. FPJ choreographed the fight and war scenes. 5. FPJ's daughter, future Senator, Grace Poe cameoed in the film as Daria Ramirez's sister. 9. In addition, Bancom Audiovision also spent 100,000 Cuban pesos for an hour-long made-for-television documentary film on the making of Aguila and hired producer Jesse M. Ejercito as advertising and marketing consultant. 5. This is the second of Eddie Romero's epic historical film trilogy, wedged in between Ganito Kami Noon, Pano Kao Nayan, and Kamakalawa. The film's entire music was written by Ryan Cayabyab. Cayabyab also sang the American singer's part during the 1924 cabaret scene. The film's theme song, Hidayan Mo, was composed by Cayabyab specifically for the film. 5. The song was interpreted by Basil Valdez. There are 3 themes prevalent throughout the film: family, history, and society and nationalism. 12. 4-5. Film director and scribe Nick Diocampo points out that the film may be examined to better appreciate the value of the family as a basic institution of the society. 12. The family as a basic institution of the society was enshrined in Section 4, Art. 2 of the 1973 Constitution, the law in force at the time of the film's release, which not only recognizes the family as such but also endeavors to protect and strengthen the same. The same provision was carried over to the 1987 Constitution, where an entire section is devoted to the family. In the film, family life in the Philippines is examined through historical lenses as it depicts the evolution of the Filipino family throughout history and how its values are formed and/or changed. 12. The family is likewise peered into through the eyes of Daniel Aguila, as he has lived through an ever-evolving and ever-growing family, first having grown fatherless and then having a difficult relationship with his mother, Isabel, because of her decision to remarry a man Daniel detests, a choice which was itself imposed upon Isabel by her own parents. Then as a family man himself, how Daniel copes with his own children who has views opposite to his and whose views shape the paths they chose to take in life. The film likewise explores alienation within one's own family, as seen in the experiences of Daniel, Osman, Mari, and Lillian, who all feel like they are outsiders within their own family at certain points in the film. Another point the film touches upon is how the family shapes its members, specifically how familial experience molded Daniel Aguila as a person. This film has been cited as an unconventional FPJ movie as it shows FPJ as Daniel Aguila being vulnerable, a departure from the typical roles that show Poe as an infallible and incorruptible conquering hero. 5. In the film, Daniel's failings as a man and as head of the family is shown, and it examines how these define Daniel as a person and how it influenced the Aguila family. 12. History and society. Being under the genre of historical drama, the film depicts how values, not only in the family but in the larger Philippine society, devolves. 12. It shows how Daniel and his family and the values they hold are a product of their times, how their choices are informed by the prevailing values and trends of a given period. 12. This is exemplified in the character arc of Mari, who, in entering the political arena, becomes swept by its corruption and inevitably becomes part of the machinery that he once sought to change. This is likewise shown in the arc of Raul, who is driven to suicide because of the realization that his hero and mentor, Margot, was willing to give up their cause for personal reasons, much like Cadio and Basilio before her. Alienation again takes the spotlight as Daniel is driven into abandoning his family and choosing to live in both Cotabato and Bohol to escape a society that has become more and more unfamiliar to him. In both communities, he helps its residents and teaches them self-reliance. Nationalism. As with Ganito Kami Noon, Pano Kayo Nayon, the film examines what the social ills that pervades Philippine society and how said problems merely evolve but are never solved. 12. This pervasive problem is exemplified by the character of Simeon Garrido, who was willing to sell his loyalty insofar as the new colonial masters are willing to serve his personal interests. Much later in the film, Mari's entry into politics leads him to do as the Romans do and engage in corruption to the detriment of the Filipino people. Similarly, the character arc of Margot shows how those claiming to fight for nationalism can be corrupted when personal interests is thrown into the picture. Throughout the film, nationalism is a constant frustration for Daniel, 12, who has seen how Filipinos are pitted by the Philippines' colonizers against each other, how those who fought for the independence of the Philippines are instead treated like criminals, and how those who collaborated with the enemies are given preferred positions. Daniel, in 1945, even the immense of his service in the war ultimately redounded to the benefit of but a few, instead of that of the Filipino people. Release. The film was released on February 14, 1980, and was simultaneously played at 25 theaters across Metro Manila. Prior to the film's Valentine's Day debut, it was previewed thrice and had 3 premieres. 5. Re-releases. Years after its initial theater run, the multi-generational epic has seen newfound appreciation. It has become in recent years among film festival organizers' favorite of Eddie Romero's works and has consequently seen reruns for the benefit and appreciation of newer and younger audience. Among the subsequent screenings that the film has had was at the 9th Cinemalaya Synesthesia in 2013. In 2019, ABS-CBN Film Restoration Project and FPJ Productions digitally restored the film, which required 3,000 hours of digital preservation. Subsequently, the digitally restored film has been screened at the UP Film Center as part of the UP Film Institute's commemoration of FPJ's 80th birthday. In the same year, the digitally restored version was screened at the 15th C1 Originals 16. In 2024, FDCP screened its period drama version during the PFIM on September 1 at the Manila Metropolitan Theater. A historical drama, also period drama, period piece, or just period, is a dramatic work set in the past, usually used in the context of film and television, which presents historical events and characters with varying degrees of fiction, such as creative dialogue or scenes which compress separate events. The biographical film is a type of historical drama which generally focuses on a single individual or well-defined group. Historical dramas can include romances, adventure films, and swashbucklers. Historical drama differs from historical fiction, which generally presents fictional characters and events during historical events. A period piece may be set during a vast era such as the Middle Ages, or a specific period such as the Roaring Twenties, or the recent past. Scholarship. In different eras, different subgenres have risen to popularity, such as the westerns and sword and sandal films that dominated North American cinema in the 1950s. The costume drama is often separated as a genre of historical dramas. Early critics defined them as films focusing on romance and relationships in sumptuous surroundings, contrasting them with other historical dramas believed to have more serious themes. Other critics have defended costume dramas and argued that they are disparaged because they are a genre directed towards women. 1. Historical dramas have also been described as a conservative genre, glorifying an imagined past that never existed. 2. Historical accuracy. 2004 filming of a 19th century film scene set in London. Historical drama may include mostly fictionalized narratives based on actual people or historical events, such as the history plays of Shakespeare. 3. Apollo 13, The Tudors, Braveheart, Pocahontas, Chernobyl, Enemy at the Gates, Les Miserables, and Titanic. 4. Works may include references to real-life people or events from the relevant time period or contain factually accurate representations of the time period. Works that focus on accurately portraying specific historical events or persons are instead known as docudrama, such as The Report. Where a person's life is central to the story, such a work is known as biographical drama, with notable examples being films such as Alexander, 5, Frida, House of Saddam, Lincoln, Lust for Life, Raging Bull, Stalin, and Oppenheimer. Drama is the specific mode of fiction represented in performance, a play, opera, ballet, etc., performed in a theater, or on radio or television. 1. Considered as a genre of poetry in general, the dramatic mode has been contrasted with the epic and the lyrical modes ever since Aristotle's Poetics, c. 335 BC, the earliest work of dramatic theory. 2. The term drama comes from a Greek word meaning deed or act, classical Greek, delta Romeo alpha, drama, which is derived from haidu, classical Greek, delta rho omega, drael. The two masks associated with drama represent the traditional generic division between comedy and tragedy. In English, As was the analogous case in many other European languages, the word play or game, translating the Anglo-Saxon plegan or Latin ludus, was the standard term for dramas until William Shakespeare's time, just as its creator was a playmaker rather than a dramatist and the building was a playhouse rather than a theater. 3. The use of drama in a more narrow sense to designate a specific type of play dates from the modern era. Drama, in this sense, refers to a play that is neither a comedy nor a tragedy, for example, Zola's Therese Raquin, 1873, or Chekhov's Ivanov, 1887. It is this narrower sense that the film and television industries, along with film studies, adopted to describe drama as a genre within their respective media. The term radio drama has been used in both senses, originally transmitted in a live performance. It may also be used to refer to the more highbrow and serious end of the dramatic output of radio. 4. The enactment of drama in theater, performed by actors on a stage before an audience, presupposes collaborative modes of production and a collective form of reception. The structure of dramatic texts, unlike other forms of literature, is directly influenced by this collaborative production and collective reception. 5. Mime is a form of drama where the action of a story is told only through the movement of the body. Drama can be combined with music. The dramatic text in opera is generally sung throughout, as for in some ballets dance, expresses or imitates emotion, character, and narrative action. 6. Musicals include both spoken dialogue and songs, and some forms of drama have incidental music or musical accompaniment underscoring the dialogue, melodrama and Japanese no, for example, 7. Closet drama is a form that is intended to be read, rather than performed. 8. In improvisation, the drama does not pre-exist the moment of performance. Performers devise a dramatic script spontaneously before an audience. 9. History of Western drama. Classical Greek drama. Main article, Theater of Ancient Greece. Relief of a seated poet, Menander, with masks of new comedy, 1st century BC, early 1st century AD, Princeton University Art Museum. Western drama originates in classical Greece. 10. The theatrical culture of the city-state of Athens produced three genres of drama: tragedy, comedy, and the satyr play. Their origins remain obscure, though by the 5th century BC, they were institutionalized in competitions held as part of festivities celebrating the god Dionysus. 11. Historians know the names of many ancient Greek dramatists, not least Thespis, who is credited with the innovation of an actor, Hippocrates, who speaks, rather than sings, and impersonates a character, rather than speaking in his own person, while interacting with the chorus and its leader, Coryphaeus, who were traditional. Part of the performance of non-dramatic poetry, dithyrambic, lyric, and epic. 12. Only a small fraction of the work of 5 dramatists, however, has survived to this day. We have a small number of complete texts by the tragedians Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, and the comic writers Aristophanes and, from the late 4th century, Menander. 13. Aeschylus' historical tragedy The Persians is the oldest surviving drama, although one it won first prize at the City Dionysia competition in 472 BC, he had been writing plays for more than 25 years. 14. The competition, Agon. 4. Tragedies may have begun as early as 534 BC. Official records, Didascaliae, begin from 501 BC when the satyr play was introduced. 15. Tragic dramatists were required to present a tetralogy of plays, though the individual works were not necessarily connected by story or theme, which usually consisted of 3 tragedies and 1 satyr play, though exceptions were made, as with Euripides' Alcestis in 438 BC. Comedy was officially recognized with a prize in the competition from 487 to 486 BC. 5 comic dramatists competed at the city Dionysia, though during the Peloponnesian War this may have been reduced to 3, each offering a single comedy. 16. Ancient Greek comedy is traditionally divided between Old Comedy, 5th century BC, Middle Comedy, 4th century BC, and New Comedy, late 4th century to 2nd BC. 17. Classical Roman drama. Main article, Theatre of Ancient Rome. An ivory statuette of a Roman actor of tragedy, 1st century AD. Following the expansion of the Roman Republic, 527 to 509 BC, into several Greek territories between 270 and 240 BC, Rome encountered Greek drama, 18, from the later years of the Republic and by means of the Roman Empire, 27 BC, 476 AD, theatre spread west across Europe, around the Mediterranean and reached England. Roman theatre was more varied, extensive and sophisticated than that of any culture before it. 19. While Greek drama continued to be performed throughout the Roman period, the year 240 BC marks the beginning of regular Roman drama. 20. From the beginning of the empire, however, interest in full-length drama declined in favor of a broader variety of theatrical entertainments. 21. The first important works of Roman literature were the tragedies and comedies that Livius Andronicus wrote from 240 BC. 22. 5 years later, Gnaeus Naevius also began to write drama. 22. No plays from either writer have survived. While both dramatists composed in both genres, Andronicus was most appreciated for his tragedies and Naevius for his comedies, their successors tended to specialize in one or the other, which led to a separation of the subsequent development of each type of drama. 22. By the beginning of the 2nd century BC, drama was firmly established in Rome and a guild of writers, Collegium Poetarum, had been formed. 23. The Roman comedies that have survived are all fabulla palliata, comedies based on Greek subjects, and come from 2 dramatists, Titus Maxius Plautus, and Publius Terentius Afer, Terence. 24. In reworking the Greek originals, the Roman comic dramatists abolished the role of the chorus in dividing the drama into episodes and introduced musical accompaniment to its dialogue, between 1/3 of the dialogue in the comedies of Plautus and 2/3 in those of Terence. 25. The action of all scenes is set in the exterior location of a street and its complications often follow from eavesdropping. 25. Plautus, the more popular of the two, wrote between 205 and 184 BC and 20 of his comedies survive, of which his vices are best known. He was admired for the wit of his dialogue and his use of a variety of poetic meters. 26. All of the 6 comedies that Terence wrote between 166 and 160 BC have survived. The complexity of his plots, in which he often combined several Greek originals, was sometimes denounced, but his double plots enabled a sophisticated presentation of contrast in human behavior. 26. No early Roman tragedy survives, though it was highly regarded in its day. Historians know of 3 early tragedians, Quintus Ennius, Marcus Pacuvius, and Lucius Accius. 25. From the time of the empire, the work of 2 tragedians survives. One is an unknown author, while the other is the Stoic philosopher Seneca. 27. 9 of Seneca's tragedies survive, all of which are fabulla crepidata, tragedies adapted from Greek originals. His Phaedra, for example, was based on Euripides' Hippolytus. 28. Historians do not know who wrote the only extant example of the fabulla praetexta, tragedies based on Roman subjects, Octavia, but in former times it was mistakenly attributed to Seneca due to his appearance as a character in the tragedy. 27. Medieval. Main article, Medieval theater. Stage drawing from a 15th century vernacular morality play The Castle of Perseverance, as found in the Macro manuscript. Beginning in the early Middle Ages, churches staged dramatized versions of biblical events, known as liturgical dramas, to enliven annual celebrations. 29. The earliest example is the Easter Tropum Deus Sic Quem Quiritus, c. 925. 30. Two groups would sing responsively in Latin, though no impersonation of characters was involved. By the 11th century, it had spread through Europe to Russia, Scandinavia, and Italy, excluding Islamic era Spain. In the 10th century, Prosthetho wrote 6 plays in Latin modeled on Terence's comedies, but which treated religious subjects. 31. Her plays are the first known to be composed by a female dramatist and the first identifiable Western drama of the post-classical era. 31. Later, Hildegard of Bingen wrote a musical drama, Ordo Virtutum, c. 1155. 31. One of the most famous of the early secular plays is the courtly pastoral Robin and Marian, written in the 13th century in French by Adam de la Halle. 32. The interlude of the student and the girl, circa 1300, one of the earliest known in English, seems to be the closest in tone and form to the contemporaneous French farces, such as The Boy and the Blind Man. 33. Many plays survive from France and Germany in the late Middle Ages, when some type of religious drama was performed in nearly every European country. Many of these plays contained comedy, devils, villains, and clowns. 34. In England, trade guilds began to perform vernacular, mystery plays, which were composed of long cycles of many playlets or pageants, of which 4 are extant: York, 48 plays, Chester, 24, Wakefield, 32, and the so-called N-Town, 42. The second shepherd's play from the Wakefield cycle is a farcical story of a stolen sheep that its protagonist, Mac, tries to pass off as his newborn child asleep in a crib. It ends when the shepherds from whom he has stolen are summoned to the Nativity of Jesus. 35. Morality plays, a modern term, emerged as a distinct dramatic form around 1400 and flourished in the early Elizabethan era in England. Characters were often used to represent different ethical ideals. Everyman, for example, includes such figures as good deeds, knowledge and strength, and this characterization reinforces the conflict between good and evil for the audience. The Castle of Perseverance, circa 1400 to 1425, depicts an archetypal figure's progress from birth through to death. Horestes, circa 1567, a late, hybrid morality, and one of the earliest examples of an English revenge play, brings together the classical story of Orestes with a vice from the medieval allegorical tradition, alternating comic, slapstick scenes with serious, tragic ones. 36. Also important in this period were the folk dramas of the Mummers play, performed during the Christmas season. Court masques were particularly popular during the reign of Henry VIII. 37. The Elizabethan and Jacobean. Main article, English Renaissance Theatre. One of the great flowerings of drama in England occurred in the 16th and 17th centuries. Many of these plays were written in verse, particularly iambic pentameter. In addition to Shakespeare, such authors as Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Middleton, and Ben Jonson were prominent playwrights during this period. As in the medieval period, historical plays celebrated the lives of past kings, enhancing the image of the Tudor monarchy. Authors of this period drew some of their storylines from Greek mythology and Roman mythology or from the plays of eminent Roman playwrights such as Plautus and Terence. English Restoration Comedy. Main article, Restoration Comedy. Colley Cibber as the extravagant and affected Lord Foppington, brutal, evil, and smart, in Vanber's The Relapse, 1696. Restoration comedy refers to English comedies written and performed in England during the Restoration period from 1660 to 1710. Comedy of manners is used as a synonym of Restoration comedy. 38. After public theatre had been banned by the Puritan regime, the reopening of the theatres in 1660 with the restoration of Charles II signaled the renaissance of English drama. 39. Restoration comedy is known for its sexual explicitness, urbane, cosmopolitan wit, up-to-the-minute topical writing, and crowded and bustling plots. Its dramatists stole freely from the contemporary French and Spanish stage, from English Jacobean and Caroline plays, and even from Greek and Roman classical comedies, combining the various plot lines in adventurous ways. Resulting differences of tone in a single play were appreciated rather than frowned on, as the audience prized variety within as well as between plays. Restoration comedy peaked twice. The genre came to spectacular maturity in the mid-1670s with an extravaganza of aristocratic comedies. 20 lean years followed this short golden age, although the achievement of the first professional female playwright, Afraban, in the 1680s is an important exception. In the mid-1690s, a brief second Restoration comedy renaissance arose, aimed at a wider audience. The comedies of the golden 1670s and 1690s peak times are significantly different from each other. The unsentimental or hard comedies of John Dryden, William Wycherley, and George Atteridge reflected the atmosphere at court and celebrated with frankness an aristocratic macho lifestyle of unremitting sexual intrigue and conquest. The Earl of Rochester, real-life Restoration Ray, courtier and poet, is flatteringly portrayed in Etheridge's The Man of Mode, 1676, as a riotous, witty, intellectual, and sexually irresistible aristocrat, a template for posterity's idea of the glamorous Restoration Ray, actually never a very common character in Restoration comedy. The single play that does most to support the charge of obscenity leveled then and now at Restoration comedy is probably Wycherley's masterpiece The Country Wife, 1675, whose title contains a lewd pun and whose notorious China scene is a series of sustained double entendres. 40. During the second wave of Restoration comedy in the 1690s, the softer comedies of William Congreve and John Vanbrugh set out to appeal to more socially diverse audience with a strong middle-class element, as well as to female spectators. The comic focus shifts from young lovers outwitting the older generation to the vicissitudes of marital relations. In Congreve's Love for Love, 1695, and The Way of the World, 1700, the give-and-take set pieces of couples testing their attraction for one another have mutated into witty prenuptial debates on the eve of marriage, as in the latter's famous proviso scene. Vanbrugh's The Provoked Wife, 1697, has a light touch and more humanly recognizable characters, while The Relapse, 1696, has been admired for its throwaway wit and the characterization of Lord Foppington, an extravagant and affected burlesque fop with a dark side. Western opera is a dramatic art form that arose during the Renaissance, 46, in an attempt to revive the classical Greek drama in which dialogue, dance, and song were combined. Being strongly intertwined with Western classical music, the opera has undergone enormous changes in the past 4 centuries and it is an important form of theater until this day. Noteworthy is the major influence of the German 19th century composer Richard Wagner on the opera tradition. In his view, there was no proper balance between music and theater in the operas of his time, because the music seemed to be more important than the dramatic aspects in these works. To restore the connection with the classical drama, he entirely renewed the operatic form to emphasize the equal importance of music and drama in works that he called music dramas. Chinese opera has seen a more conservative development over a somewhat longer period of time. Pantomime. Main article, pantomime. Pantomime, informally, panto, 47, is a type of musical comedy stage production designed for family entertainment. It was developed in England and is still performed throughout the United Kingdom, generally during the Christmas and New Year season and, to a lesser extent, in other English-speaking countries. Modern pantomime includes songs, acts, slapstick comedy and dancing, employs gender-crossing actors, and combines topical humor with a story loosely based on a well-known fairy tale, fable, or folk tale. 49. It is a participatory form of theater, in which the audience is expected to sing along with certain parts of the music and shout out phrases to the performers. Part of the appeal of amateur dramatics pantomime productions is seeing well-known local figures on stage. 50. These stories follow in the tradition of fables and folk tales. Usually, there is a lesson learned, and with some help from the audience, the hero/heroine saves the day. This kind of play uses stock characters seen in Mask and Again Commedia dell'arte. These characters include the villain, Doctor, the clown/servant, Alicino, Harlequin/Buttons, the lovers, etc. These plays usually have an emphasis on moral dilemmas, and good always triumphs over evil. This kind of play is also very entertaining, making it a very effective way of reaching many people. Pantomime has a long theatrical history in Western culture dating back to classical theater. It developed partly from the 16th century commedia dell'arte tradition of Italy, as well as other European and British stage traditions, such as 17th century masks and music hall. 48. An important part of the pantomime, until the late 19th century, was the harlequinade. 51. Outside Britain, the word pantomime is usually used to mean miming, rather than the theatrical form discussed here. 52. Mime. Mime is a theatrical medium where the action of a story is told through the movement of the body, without the use of speech. Performance of mime occurred in ancient Greece, and the word is taken from a single masked dancer called pantomimus, although their performances were not necessarily silent. 53. In medieval Europe, early forms of mime, such as mummer plays and later dumb shows, devolved. In the early 19th century Paris, Jean-Gaspard de Bureau solidified the many attributes that we have come to know in modern times, including the silent figure in whiteface. 54. Jacques Copeau, strongly influenced by commedia dell'arte and Japanese no theater, used masks in the training of his actors. Étienne Decroux, a pupil of his, was highly influenced by this and started exploring and developing the possibilities of mime and refined corporeal mime into a highly sculptural form, taking it outside of the realms of naturalism. Jacques Lecoq contributed significantly to the development of mime and physical theater with his training methods. 55. Ballet. Main article, ballet. While some ballet emphasizes the lines and patterns of movement itself, dramatic dance expresses or imitates emotion, character, and narrative action. 6. Such ballets are theatrical works that have characters and tell a story. 56. Dance movements in ballet are often closely related to everyday forms of physical expression, so that there is an expressive quality inherent in nearly all dancing, and this is used to convey both action and emotions. Mime is also used. 56. Examples include Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, which tells the story of Odette, a princess turned into a swan by an evil sorcerer's curse. Sergei Prokofiev's ballet Romeo and Juliet, based on Shakespeare's famous play, and Igor Stravinsky's Petrushka, which tells the story of the loves and jealousies of three puppets. Creative drama. Creative drama includes dramatic activities and games used primarily in educational settings with children. Its roots in the United States began in the early 1900s. Winifred Ward is considered to be the founder of creative drama in education, establishing the first academic use of drama in Evanston, Illinois, 57. Asian drama. India. Main article, Theatre in India. A scene from the drama Macbeth by Kalidasa Kalakendram in Kollam City, India. The earliest form of Indian drama was the Sanskrit drama, 58. Between the 1st century AD and the 10th was a period of relative peace in the history of India during which hundreds of plays were written, 59. With the Islamic conquests that began in the 10th and 11th centuries, theatre was discouraged or forbidden entirely, 60. Later, in an attempt to reassert indigenous values and ideas, village theatre was encouraged across the subcontinent, developing in various regional languages from the 15th to the 19th centuries. 61. The Bhakti movement was influential in performances in several regions. Apart from regional languages, Assam saw the rise of Vaishnavite drama in an artificially mixed literary language called Brajavali. 62. A distinct form of one-act plays called Ankiya not developed in the works of Sankardev. 63. A particular presentation of which is called Bayana. 64. Modern Indian theatre developed during the period of colonial rule under the British Empire, from the mid-19th century until the mid-20th. 65. Sanskrit theatre. Main article, Sanskrit drama. Performer playing Sugrava in the Kritiyatam form of Sanskrit theatre. The earliest surviving fragments of Sanskrit drama date from the 1st century AD. 66. The wealth of archaeological evidence from earlier periods offers no indication of the existence of a tradition of theatre. 67. The ancient Vedas, hymns from between 1500 and 1000 BC that are among the earliest examples of literature in the world, contain no hint of it, although a small number are composed in a form of dialogue, and the rituals of the Vedic period do not appear to have developed into theatre. 67. The Mabya by Patanjali contains the earliest reference to what may have been the seeds of Sanskrit drama. 68. This treatise on grammar from 140 BC provides a feasible date for the beginnings of theatre in India. 68. The major source of evidence for Sanskrit theatre is a treatise on theatre, Natyasastra, a compendium whose date of composition is uncertain. Estimates range from 200 BC to 200 AD, and whose authorship is attributed to Bharata Muni. The treatise is the most complete work of dramaturgy in the ancient world. It addresses acting, dance, music, dramatic construction, architecture, costuming, makeup, props, the organization of companies, the audience, competitions, and offers a mythological account of the origin of theatre. 68. Its drama is regarded as the highest achievement of Sanskrit literature. 69. It utilized stock characters, such as the hero, Naika, heroine, Naika, or clown, Vidusika. Actors may have specialized in a particular type. It was patronized by the kings as well as village assemblies. Famous early playwrights include Basa, Kalidasa, famous for Ravashi, won by valor, Malavika and Agnimitra, and the recognition of Shakuntala, Sidraka, famous for the little clay cart, Asvagosa, Dane, and Emperor Harsha, famous for Nagananda, Ratnavali, and Priyadarsika. Sakuntala, in English translation, influenced Goethe's Faust, 1808 to 1832. 69. Mobile theatre. A distinct form of theatre has developed in India where the entire crew travels performing plays from place to place, with makeshift stages and equipment, particularly in the eastern parts of the country. Jatra, Bengali for travel, originating in the Vaishnavite movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Bengal, is a tradition that follows this format. 70. Vaishnavite plays in the neighboring state of Assam, pioneered by Srimanta Sankardeva, takes the forms of Ankiya Nat and Bayana. These, along with Western influences, have inspired the development of modern mobile theater, known in Assamese as Braimyomen. In Assam, 71, modern Braimyomen stages everything from Hindu mythology to adaptations of Western classics and Hollywood movies, 72, and make use of modern techniques, such as live visual effects. Citation needed. Assamese mobile theater is estimated to be an industry worth 100 million. 73. The self-contained nature of Braimyomen, with all equipment and even the stage being carried by the troupe itself, allows staging shows even in remote villages, giving wider reach. Citation needed. Pioneers of this industry include Achyut Locker and Brajanath Sama. Modern Indian drama. See also, Malayalam drama. This section needs additional citations for verification. Please help improve this article by adding citations to reliable sources in this section. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. April 2018, learn how and when to remove this message. Rabindranath Tagore was a pioneering modern playwright who wrote plays noted for their exploration and questioning of nationalism, identity, spiritualism, and material greed. 74. His plays are written in Bengali and include Chitra, Chitrangada, 1892, The King of the Dark Chamber, Raja, 1910, The Post Office, Dakgar, 1913, and Red Oleander, Rakta 1924. 74. Girish Karnad is a noted playwright who has written a number of plays that use history and mythology to critique and problematize ideas and ideals that are of contemporary relevance. Karnad's numerous plays such as Tugla, Hayavadana, Taladanda, and Nagamandala are significant contributions to Indian drama. Vijay Tendulkar and Mahesh Dattani are amongst the major Indian playwrights of the 20th century. Mohan Rakesh in Hindi and Danish Iqbal in Urdu are considered architects of New Age drama. Mohan Rakesh's Adit Hor and Danish Iqbal's Dar Shukul are considered modern classics. China. Main article, Theatre of China. In 1958, USSR postage stamp commemorating Wan Hanqin, one of the great Chinese dramatists, who is renowned for his Zaju plays. Chinese theater has a long and complex history. Today it is often called Chinese opera, although this normally refers specifically to the popular form known as Beijing opera and Kunku. There have been many other forms of theater in China, such as Zaju. Japan. Main article, Theater of Japan. Japanese no drama is a serious dramatic form that combines drama, music, and dance into a complete aesthetic performance experience. It developed in the 14th and 15th centuries and has its own musical instruments and performance techniques, which were often handed down from father to son. The performers were generally male, for both male and female roles, although female amateurs also perform no dramas. No drama was supported by the government, and particularly the military, with many military commanders having their own troops and sometimes performing themselves. It is still performed in Japan today. 75. Kaijin is the comic counterpart to no drama. It concentrates more on dialogue and less on music, although no instrumentalists sometimes appear also in kaijin. Kabuki drama, developed from the 17th century, is another comic form, which includes dance. In a dramatic production, an ensemble cast is one that comprises many principal actors and performers who are typically assigned roughly equal amounts of screen time. 1, 2. Structure. In contrast to the popular model, which gives precedence to a sole protagonist, an ensemble cast leans more towards a sense of collectivity and community. 3. Cinema. Further information, list of films with an ensemble cast. Ensemble casts in film were introduced as early as September 1916, with D.W. Griffith's silent epic film Intolerance, feature in 4 separate though parallel plots. 4. The film follows the lives of several characters over hundreds of years, across different cultures and time periods. 5. The unification of different plot lines and character arcs is a key characteristic of ensemble casting in film, whether it is a location, event, or an overarching theme that ties the film and characters together. 4. Films that feature ensembles tend to emphasize the interconnectivity of the characters, even when the characters are strangers to one another. 6. The interconnectivity is often shown to the audience through examples of the 6 degrees of separation theory, and allows them to navigate through plot lines using cognitive mapping. 6. Examples of this method, where the 6 degrees of separation is evident in films with an ensemble cast, are in productions such as Love Actually, Crash, and Babel, which all have strong underlying themes interwoven within the plots that unify each film. 4. Whodunit films also often feature interconnected characters as suspects, such as in Death on the Nile, Clue, and Knives Out. 7. The Avengers, X-Men, and Justice League are 3 examples of ensemble casts in the superhero genre. 8. 9. Referential acting is a key factor in executing this balance, as ensemble cast members play off each other rather than off reality. 3. Filmmakers known for their use of ensemble casts include Robert Altman, Woody Allen, Spike Lee, Quentin Tarantino, Wes Anderson, and Paul Thomas Anderson, among others. Television. Ensemble casting also became more popular in television series because it allows flexibility for writers to focus on different characters in different episodes. In addition, the departure of players is less disruptive than would be the case with a regularly structured cast. The television series The Muppets, The Golden Girls, The Proud Family, and Friends are archetypal examples of ensemble casts in American sitcoms. The science fiction mystery drama Lost features an ensemble cast. Ensemble casts of 20 or more actors are common in soap operas, a genre that relies heavily on the character development of the ensemble. 10. The genre also requires continuous expansion of the cast as the series progresses, with soap operas such as General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, Neighbors, The Young and the Restless, and The Bold and the Beautiful staying on air for decades. 11. An example of a success for television in ensemble casting is the Emmy Award-winning HBO series Game of Thrones. The fantasy series features one of the largest ensemble casts on the small screen. 12. The series is notorious for major character deaths, resulting in constant changes within the ensemble. 13. Ensemble casts are common in children's television, with both human and non-human casts. Examples include Sesame Street, Thomas and Friends, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Rugrats, SpongeBob SquarePants, Total Drama, The Loud House, The Casagrandes, Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, Cow and Chicken, Hey Arnold, and The Replacements. Modern theatrical and musical drama has also developed in Japan in forms such as Shindiki and the Takarazuka Review. The name Mindanao is derived from a compound word in the Maguindanao language, min, a past tense verb prefix, and danao, meaning lake. Together, they translate to land of where the lakes are found. This name is also associated to the Maguindanan people, when the Sultanate of Maguindanao once held significant influence and where lakes with varying depths are also common among the provinces of Mindanao. 2. History. Prehistory. The 21-karat gold Aguizan image statue, 900 to 950 CE, discovered in 1917 on the banks of the Wawa River near Esperanza, Aguizan Delta. A 1926 photograph of Bagobal, Manobal, warriors. Archaeological findings on the island point to evidence of human activity dating back about 10,000 years. Around 1500 BC, Austronesian people spread throughout the Philippines. The Subanon are believed to have settled in the Zamboanga Peninsula during the Neolithic era circa 4500 to 2000 BC. Clarification needed. 10. Better source needed. Evidence of stone tools in Zamboanga del Norte may indicate a late Neolithic presence. Ceramic burial jars, both unglazed and glazed, Chinese celadones, gold ornaments, beads, and bracelets have been found in caves. Many of the ceramic objects are from the Yuan and Ming periods. Evidently, there was a long history of trade between the Subanon and the Chinese. Rajanates and Hindu Buddhism. An old Spanish map of Mindanao Island. In the classic epoch of Philippine history, 900 AD onwards, the people of Mindanao were heavily exposed to Hindu and Buddhist influence and beliefs from Indonesia and Malaysia. Indianized Abugida scripts such as Kawi and Baybayin were introduced from Java and an extinct intermediate from Sulawesi or Borneo respectively. Cultural icons of the Saran, known as Malang or Patadian, the Pudon turban, silk, and batik and ikat weaving and dyeing methods were introduced. Artifacts found from this era include a golden kanara, a golden image believed by some to be a Tara, and a Ganesha pendant. These cultural traits passed from Mindanao into the Visayas and Luzon, but were subsequently lost or heavily modified after the Spanish arrival in the 16th century. Hindu-Buddhist cultural influence took root in the coastal settlements, syncretizing with indigenous animist beliefs and customs among the tribes of the interior. The Butuan Rajanate, a Hinduized kingdom mentioned in Chinese records as a tributary state in the 10th century, was concentrated along the northeastern coast of Butuan Bay. 11. Failed verification. The Rajanate of Samnalan in Zamboanga was also in Mindanao. The Durangan epic of the Maranao people harkens back to this era as the most complete local version of the Ramayana. The Maguindanao at this time also had strong Hindu beliefs, evidenced by the Ladya Raja Ravana, epic saga that survives to the present, albeit highly Islamized from the 17th century onward. Sultanates and Islam. This section needs additional citations for verification. Please help improve this article by adding citations to reliable sources in this section. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. August 2020, learn how and when to remove this message. Approximate historical extent of the Muslim sultanates of Sulu, Maguindanao, and Lanao in the 19th century. The spread of Islam in the Philippines began in the 14th century, mostly through the influence of Muslim merchants from the western Malay archipelago. The first mosque in the Philippines was built in the mid-14th century in the town of Sininal, Tari-Tari. 11. Around the 16th century, the Muslim sultanates of Sulu, Lanao, and Maguindanao were established from formerly Hindu-Buddhist Rajanates. As Islam colonized Mindanao, the natives of the sultanates had to either convert to Islam or pay tribute to their new Muslim rulers. The largest of the Muslim polities in mainland Mindanao was the Sultanate of Maguindanao, which controlled the southern floodplains of the Rio Grande de Mindanao and most of the coastal area of Illana Bay, Moro Gulf, Sarangani Bay, and Davao Gulf. The name Mindanao was derived from this sultanate. But most of Mindanao remained animist, especially the Lamak people in the interior. Most of the northern, eastern, and southern coastal regions inhabited by Visayans, Suraganan and Butranan, and other groups were later converted to Christianity by the Spanish. Mindanao was then embroiled between a conflict with the Boholano, Visayan, Dapitan Kingdom and the Moluccan Sultanate of Ternate. Dapitan, which was originally at Bohol, was destroyed by an expeditionary force from the Ternate Sultanate, and Dapitanios were forced to relocate to northern Mindanao, where they waged war against the Sultanate of Lanao and established a new Dapitan there. 12. Mindanaoans then spread out of Mindanao across Southeast Asia. Historian William Henry Scott, quoting the Portuguese manuscript Summa Orientalis, noted that Madama in Burma, Myanmar, had a large presence of merchants from Mindanao. 13. Spanish colonization and Christianity. See also, Spanish-Moro conflict. Christian Filipinos, who served under the Spanish army, searching for Moro rebels during the Spanish-Moro conflict, c. 1887. The insurgency in Mindanao can be traced to the early 16th century. 2 Spanish missionaries baptizing a Moro convert to Catholicism, circa 1890. In 1521, Antonio Pigafetta wrote an account of reaching Mindanao. He was with Magellan on the first circumnavigation of the globe and sailing for the King of Spain. 14. On February 2, 1543, Ruy López de Villalobos was the first Spaniard to reach Mindanao. 15. He called the island Caesarea Caroli, after Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire, and I of Spain. Shortly after Spain's colonization of Cebu, it moved on to colonize the Caraga region in northeast Mindanao and discovered significant Muslim presence on the island. Over time, a number of tribes in Mindanao converted to Catholicism and built settlements and forts throughout the coastal regions. These settlements endured despite attacks from neighboring Muslim sultanates. The most heavily fortified of them, apart from a short period in 1662 when Spain sent soldiers from the city to Manila after a threat of invasion from the Chinese general Koxinga, was Zamboanga City. 16. Unreliable source, which was settled by soldiers from Peru and Mexico. 17. The sultanates resisted Spanish pressure and attempts to convert them to Christianity during this period. 18. The Sultanate of Ternate of the Maluku Islands formed a close alliance with the sultanates of Mindanao, especially Maguindanao. 19. Ternate regularly sent military reinforcements to Mindanao to assist the local sultanates in their war against Spanish-controlled Manila. 20. Better source needed. By the late 18th century, Spain had geographic dominance over the island, having established settlements and forts in most of Mindanao, including Zamboanga City and Misamis Occidental to the northwest, Iligan City, Misamis Oriental, Bukidnon, and Camaguin Island to the north, Surigao and Adusan in the Caraga region to the east, and Davao in the island's Gulf Coast. Spain continued to engage in battles with Muslim sultanates until the end of the 19th century. 16. At the same time as the Philippine Revolution against Spain, the Republic of Zamboanga rose as a revolutionary state in Mindanao before it was absorbed by the oncoming Americans. American occupation and Philippine Commonwealth. See also, Moro Rebellion. In the Treaty of Paris in 1898, Spain sold the entire Philippine archipelago to the United States for $20 million. The 1900 Treaty of Washington and the 1930 Convention between the United States and Great Britain clarified the borders between Mindanao and Borneo. In early 1900s, the Commonwealth government, led by Americans, encouraged citizens from Luzon and Visayas to migrate to Mindanao, consisting mostly of Ilocanos, Cebuanos, and Ilonggos. Settlers streaming into Soxargen led to the displacement of the Blan and Tboli tribes. Citation needed. World War II. In April 1942, Mindanao, along with the rest of the Philippines, officially entered World War II after Japanese soldiers invaded key cities in the islands. 21. Many towns and cities were burned to the ground in Mindanao, most notably Davao City, Zamboanga City, Lanao, Cagayan de Oro, Iligan City, and Butuan. 22. In the months of April and May 1942, Japanese forces defeated U.S. troops commanded by William F. Sharp and Guy Fort, in a battle that started at Malaban, a town close to Gandamaja, Makadar, Lanao, and ended close to the town of Kanasi, Lanao. Davao City was among the earliest to be occupied by the invading Japanese forces. They immediately fortified the city as a bastion of the Japanese defense system, citation needed. Davao City was subjected by the returning forces of General Douglas MacArthur to constant bombing before the American Liberation Forces landed in Leyte in October 1944. 23. Filipino soldiers and local guerrilla fighters were actively fighting Japanese forces until liberation at the conclusion of the Battle of Mindanao. 24. Post-war era and Philippine independence. Mindanao was peaceful and increasingly progressive in the post-war period, including the 1950s and the mid-1960s. Ethnic tensions were minimal, and there was essentially no presence of secessionist groups in Mindanao. 25. Marcos era, 1965 to 1986. Main articles: Martial law under Ferdinand Marcos, Alaga, Jabita massacre, and Moro conflict. Under Ferdinand Marcos's administration, Christian groups began to settle in Mindanao, displacing many locals. The population boom resulted in conflicts as the original Omers sought their ancestral land domains. 26, 27. The Marcos administration encouraged new settlers who had emigrated to Mindanao to form a militia, which was eventually called the Alaga. Anecdotal evidence states that the Alaga often committed human rights abuses by targeting the Moro and Lamat people, as well as attempting to seize additional territory. It resulted in a lingering animosity between Moro and Christian communities. Mistrust and a cycle of violence are still felt today due to the creation of the Alaga. 28, 29. The Jabita massacre in 1968 is commonly cited as the major flashpoint that ignited the Moro insurgency, and the ensuing ethnic tensions led to the formation of secessionist movements. 30, such as the Muslim Independence Movement and the Bangsamoro Liberation Organization. These movements were largely political in nature, but the prohibition of political parties after Marcos's 1972 declaration of martial law led to the founding and dominance of armed groups such as the Moro National Liberation Front, MNLF, and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, MILF. 29. Ethnic conflicts continued to escalate, leading to incidents like the 1971 Manilay Massacre, the Pata Island Massacre, and the Palambang Massacre. 29. Additionally, an economic crisis in late 1969 led to social unrest throughout the country, and violent crackdowns on protests led to the radicalization of many students. 31, with some joining the New People's Army, bringing the New People's Army Rebellion to Mindanao for the first time. 25. Marcos's declaration led to the shuttering of press outlets, television stations, national newspapers, weekly magazines, community newspapers, and radio stations throughout the country, including in Mindanao. 32. The remaining years of the Marcos dictatorship led to the killings of many Mindanao journalists, with prominent examples being Alex Arcullo of Mindanao Currents and Mindaweek. 33, 34, and Jacobo Amatang of the Mindanao Observer. 35, 36. Fifth Republic, 1986, present. This section needs to be updated. Please help update this article to reflect recent events or newly available information. October 2019. In 1989, the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, ARMM, was established, constituted by several provinces in western Mindanao. In March 2000, President Joseph Estrada declared an all-out war against the MILF after it committed a series of terrorist attacks on government buildings, civilians, and foreigners. A number of livelihood intervention projects, from organizations such as USAID and the Emergency Livelihood Assistance Program, ELAP, aided in the reconstruction of areas affected by constant battles on the island. 37. In December 2009, President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo officially placed Maguindanao under a state of martial law following the Maguindanao massacre. On September 9, 2013, an MNLF faction attempted to raise the flag of a self-proclaimed Bangsamoro Republic at Zamboanga City Hall in an armed incursion into parts of the city. On January 25, 2015, a shootout took place during a police operation by the Special Action Force, SAF, of the Philippine National Police, PNP, in Tucanalapao, Mamasapano, Maguindanao. The operation, codenamed Oplan Exodus, was intended to capture or kill wanted Malaysian terrorist and bomb maker Zulkifli Abtir and other Malaysian terrorists or high-ranking members of the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, BIF. Lano Sultans making an open letter to Duterte urging for the quick resolution of the Marawi crisis. In May 2017, President Rodrigo Duterte declared martial law on the entire island group of Mindanao following the Marawi siege by the Mude terrorist group. 38. More than 180,000 people were forced to evacuate Marawi City. 39. Around 165 security forces and 47 residents were confirmed killed in the battle, although Marawi residents believe the number of civilians killed was far higher. The official death toll in the 5-month conflict is 1,109, most of which were members of a militant alliance which drew fighters from radical factions of domestic Islamist groups. 40. In 2019, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao was established, replacing the former ARMM.